So there is a reason that 88% of businesses don't know what their business is worth. And it is something called emotional equity. Now, you got into business because you wanted to create freedom and flexibility for yourself, right? Your business became your baby because you've lived and you've breathed it for 60 plus hours a week for however long you've been in business. And of course, you want that hard work, that sacrifice to be worth something, right? Because why wouldn't you? Like any reasonable person would want to be rewarded for all of that sacrifice. The unfortunate reality is through surveying thousands of seven-figure business owners just like you using our financial performance scorecard, we realized that a lot of business owners don't have clarity on what the intrinsic value of their business is. And what does that mean? You're potentially leaving $2 to $5 million of potential wealth on the table because you don't know how to value your business. And more importantly, you don't know how to create additional value in your business to help you achieve that objective. So if you listen to me and you're a seven-figure business owner, I'm going to share with you some valuable insights that we've extracted from businesses that have completed our financial performance scorecard. And we've taken through a case study process in order to understand why they're producing these kinds of results. So let's get stuck in. So for a lot of these businesses, their business actually represents between 60 and 80% of their net wealth, okay? But 88% don't know what it's actually worth. And means you're driving blindfolded. So there are some real reasons and issues here. First and foremost, your business is valued at a multiple of EBITDA or normalized discretionary earnings. What does that mean? It is essentially the true profitability of your business before interest, before tax, and before depreciation or amortisation. In other words, what does the profit that your business produce before your accountant gets their grubby little hands on your number, okay? So for most businesses, there is a multiple that is applied to that normalized profit that determines what your business is worth. And then usually that is in addition to any stock or assets that comes with the business. So if you've got a trade business and there's vans and there's equipment, or if you've got a product business, it's inventory, that would be above and beyond what the valuation is. Now, as a general rule of thumb, most service businesses have a valuation multiple between 1 and 3 times their normalized profitability. So if your business is doing $500,000 a year in profit, then your business is worth, as a general rule of thumb, between $500,000 and $1.5 million. Now, in that scenario, like, what could you do with an extra $1.5 million in liquid cash? Could you pay for your mortgage? Could you invest that to produce potentially a $75,000 to $100,000 a year in passive income? And could that mean financial freedom for you? This is the value of the opportunity. More importantly, there is a fundamental difference between the 1 times valuation and the 3 times valuation. And there's potential for certain businesses that are doing between 7 and 8 figures to be able to increase that valuation to 5 times, and in many cases, even up to 10 times profitability. That could be the difference between getting $500,000 as a business value and $5 million as a business value. So I'm going to talk you through some of the reasons why businesses either have no value or have a lower valuation multiple, and how that separates from the businesses who have a high valuation multiple. So there are 5 value multipliers. Number 1 is systematic revenue. Now, this has a 2 to 4 times impact on your valuation. So systematic revenue basically means the likelihood and predictability of future cash flows. So on one extreme, you've got a business that is a goodwill business, okay? You're only as good as the next person who calls to do a job. And maybe those clients only do work with you once, okay? And on the other extreme, we have a software as a service business that has really sticky subscription-based clients that have a very low attrition rate. There's a fundamental difference between the valuation. On one hand, the business may be worth 1 times, and a SaaS business could be worth 10 times, okay? So what we look at is we look at recurring revenue. When we've got recurring revenue, or we've got the ability to show how many times a client typically comes back to work with us, that commands premium multiple. Next, predictable cash flow reduces buyers' risk, because buyers, when they're buying a business, they want to have certainty around those future cash flows. So the more certain those future cash flows, the more of a premium they're prepared to pay. And then also long-term contracts provide certainty. So if you do engage your clients on contracts, or you've got service level agreements or those kinds of things, that is obviously going to have a positive impact on your valuation. Multiplier number 2 is owner independent. This has a 3 to 5 times impact, guys. So this is about having a business that runs without the owner, because an acquirer of your business usually doesn't want to get a job. Now, there are some mum and pop operators who want to buy a business where they can own and operate it, but they aren't the people who are going to pay a premium, because those are usually the people with the least financial resources, right? They're usually ones that are going to look for the lowest possible price. They're going to want vendor finance. They're a higher risk acquirer compared to a professional acquirer who wants to buy a business that is self-functioning. They don't want to buy a job for themselves. They want to buy an asset that produces free cash flow. So we need to have a business that runs without the founders, and that will sell for significantly more. So this is about systemizing yourself out of the business. We want to build systems that free yourself from the operations, and we want to build team that ensure that they fill that gap. And of course, we want that team to be sticky in the business. They want to be happy, and we want to ensure that when a new owner comes in, that they're going to stay. And we want to document and all of the processes, the systems, the procedures, so we can enable smooth transition. Basically, have an operations manual that we can hand over to an acquirer for them to continue to run the business and produce predictable results. Lever number 3 is growth system. So this has a 2 to 3 times impact. So we want to have proven marketing systems that scale. And what an acquirer is looking for is that you have a long track history of being able to produce 20% or more year-on-year growth. So if you can produce 20% or more year-on-year growth sustainably, and you've got a system that shows exactly how that's done, then you're going to be able to command a significant premium. Versus a business that has, say, 5 to 10% growth, still good, but it's not that great, versus a business that's stagnant, versus a business that's going backwards, right? These will have a fundamental difference in the valuation multiple. Next, documented sales process and conversion rates. So ideally, you've got a sales team, people who produce revenue, not you. And we've got a documented system of the KPIs. So, okay, we did this many meetings, we sent this many proposals, we got this many clients. We want to make sure that we can document and demonstrate the results. And that we ideally have an operational system that supports growth. So we've been able to prove, okay, as we've grown the business, this is how much we need to have in terms of capacity to deliver. This is what the operations need to look like to sustain this. So in other words, we can grow another 20%, and then we need to hire these people. Being able to show a future acquirer what the operations need to look like to facilitate the growth is really, really important. Multiplier number 4 is financial optimization. Not as significant, but still pretty significant. This is a 1.5 to 2 times impact in terms of the valuation. So clear financial records and tax optimization. We need to be able to demonstrate that the business has clean financials. So if you're running your personal expenses, you go to buy Kentucky Fried Chicken using the business card, you're funding personal holidays, your personal vehicle is through the business. These are not things that a professional business owner does, okay? The thing that I try and do with all of my clients is I say, if you were a CEO of a publicly listed company, would you get away with running these expenses through the business, okay? And if the answer to that is no, then don't do it. Because one of the biggest areas of scrutiny in a sale of a business is add backs. And a lot of business owners, they incur all these personal expenses, and they come up with this huge list of add backs or normalizations where they try and say, oh yeah, the profit was 100 grand, but I spent 200 grand of stuff on my personal expenses, so the profit's actually 300 grand. That is a point of serious negotiation, right? Whereas if you just had 300 grand of profit and you spent that 200 grand outside of the business, that can't be negotiated because the number is the number. This is critically important. Next, profit margin improvement. You need to have an average or above average profit margin for your industry. So like, for example, like if your industry average of profit is 10% and you can produce 20% consistent profit, then your business is worth significantly more, arguably 2 times more than a business producing 10%, right? So it's really important that you have a strategy to optimize profit and to control the costs, particularly as you've grown and scaled the business. Next is capital efficiency and cash flow management. So you want to be able to demonstrate what is the working capital requirements of the business and what have been the cash flows. And more importantly, you want to show an acquirer, hey, I built this business, it produced this much profit, and this is what I've been able to achieve with that profit. Because this firmly cements the value that your business represents to a potential acquirer. And the important thing to consider is that a business owner, a real professional business owner, doesn't want to buy your bullshit. They want to buy a fully functioning, high performance asset and they will pay a premium for it. And in contrast to that, if you want to sell your bullshit, they're going to discount the absolute buggery out of your business. You're not going to get the money that you want. And then multiple number 5 is strategic position. This has a 2 to 4 times impact. Market leadership and competitive advantages. And why are you the best and most logical choice in your market? Why is your brand better than your competitors, right? Why is your culture and your community better than your competitors? Are your clients raving fans? Do you have lots of testimonials and case studies? Next is your intellectual property and your proprietary processes. So have you trademarked these things? Have you named these things? Have you created visual models around these things? This all creates value. This is what we call intangible assets. And strategic relationships and exclusive contacts. So if you've got strategic partners or referrers, how do you document those processes, potentially put those under contract and make sure those contracts are transferable? Really, really important. So let's give you a case study. We had a client, Tom, had a business was doing about $3 million a year. His pre-optimization multiple was 1.2 times. So basically, his business was worth about $3.6 million. We went through the optimization process, and over a space of about 12 months, we increased his multiple to 3.1 times. So that was a $9.3 million valuation. Exactly the same business, didn't even increase revenue much, but he was able to increase his business value by $5.7 million. That's a pretty significant amount of money. Like, what could you do with an extra $5.7 million, right? So the big point here is about understanding. You don't want to sell your business until one day you do. We need 1 to 3 years to prepare your business for sale ideas. So you need to think about it now. And if this has kind of got you thinking about the future, it's important that you get clear on where you're at. Click the link below, complete the financial performance scorecard. It'll take you about 5 minutes and you'll get a customized report that'll analyze your profit, analyze your tax, analyze your wealth strategy, and help you identify the low-hanging financial fruit. From there, it'll give you a customized report that shows you exactly where you need to focus your time and attention. And it'll also give you some resources that'll help you implement. Remember, if you wait until the end, it is going to mean that you're going to have to sacrifice and compromise when it matters most. It is better to start sacrificing and compromising a little bit of time, some precious bandwidth to devise the strategy. Let's optimize early and often, and then let's enjoy the fruits of our labor at the end. The choice is yours. Click the link below, complete the scorecard, your future self will follow.